Welcome to the Pressure Point Dojo here on Channel Fight. I'm Chris Thomas, your host. I'm so happy to have you here. One of the most important concepts that I learned is a concept called neurodehabituation. There's a lot of stuff behind that, but I'll tell you what, it simplifies to a very critical concept that we use in our practice, in our tuite. That concept is called variable pressure. So it's one of the 9 principles of tuite, and we're going to talk about it today, along with another one of the principles of tuite, which is called sticking. And then we're going to take a look at an incredible drill that helps you learn the concept of sticking. So let's head into the masterclass. The next principle is called variable pressure, and it's actually one of the easiest ones to do. Variable pressure is based on a very simple neurological event known as neurohabituation. So neurohabituation means that a nerve gets used to a stimulus after a while. I'm going to do a finger technique here. I apply pressure. There's the pain. Okay, you see that? So this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply that pressure. I'm going to get that pain, and then I'm going to maintain constant pressure. And you will be able to observe the pain leaving his face. And then at a certain point, when he no longer feels pain anymore, he can actually pull his hand out. So watch. So there's the pain. There's the pressure. And you can see it's disappearing. I'm actually still putting just as much pressure on his hand. And then whenever he's, feels like it, he can actually pull his hand away. See? So that's neurohabituation. It means that the nerve gets habituated to the stimulus. It turns out that the reason this occurs is because nerves exhaust, they get tired. And then what it needs to fire again is a new stimulus. And so now all we have to do is think about that stimulus as a simple on, off, on, off, on, off. So now as I do the exact same technique, and I'll end up using less pressure overall, watch for the pain to disappear. On, off, 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 on. We could do that all day, and it will never get better because I never allow the nerve to habituate to the pain. Turning on, turning off, turning on, turning off. Sometimes we call this the cold winter in Wisconsin technique. So I go to apply wrist turn press, and I have resistance, and all I'm going to do is shiver. Ready? Strong? See, I'm just shivering. On, off, on, off, on, off, on, off. It works with any technique. We call this a wrist reversal because the wrist bends backwards. It's reversing the wrist. He's very strong. I can't make it go, so I'm cold. Just on, off, on, off, on, off. This is especially useful if you're smaller than your opponent. Just start shaking and vibrating, and you can make things happen very easily. This can be used defensively as well. I should mention that if somebody's grabbing you, if you start doing this, just sort of shaking and vibrating, it's easier for you to get out of a grab. And so you'll sometimes see in certain styles, you'll see vibrations in the body, and they represent these kinds of movements. Now, in this particular version of the technique, I've been, so you can see it, turning it on and off really big. But you don't have to. In fact, if you do it well, it hardly looks like you did it at all. Do you see there were like 3 beats I did? I went ba ba ba, and then I stopped, right? So I didn't have to keep going. Just like da da da. 3 quick beats is usually enough. If you do that, you start putting that into your techniques are going to work better. Regardless of what the technique is, it just will work better. All joint techniques will work this way because of how the nerves operate. That idea of variable pressure applies, it turns out, far beyond the concept of just doing the tuite technique. We actually have a number of pressure point techniques, striking techniques, which utilize that same concept. What's remarkable to me is that it took a while for me to kind of connect all the dots, but I was first shown one of these techniques in the early 80s by a Chinese Kung Fu master.
and then saw how it applied and how it developed out of our tuite, connecting a kind of circle. It was really cool. That's the kind of content that you'll find on Masterclass with Chris Thomas.
Masterclass with Chris Thomas is an extensive library of in-depth video instruction covering Ishinryu Karate, Ryukyu Kempo, Tai Chi, Okinawan weapons, and so much more. It's a great value at $399 per year, but as a viewer of the Pressure Point Dojo, you can subscribe for only $119 per year. That's an amazing 60% discount. Just use the promo code Dojo when you subscribe. That's DOJO in all capital letters. Now, let's head back to the dojo.
I want to remind you, use that promo code Dojo, all caps. And remember, there's always a delay between the time you complete your subscription and I am able to activate your account. I apologize for that. Sometimes it can take a while, but it's worth the wait. All right, let's head back into the masterclass.
Principle number 8 is called stick to the opponent. We have a tendency to want to create a lot of distance and separation between ourselves and somebody else. Sticking, it means that there's constant contact between us, that we're always touching and controlling. Now, how do you overcome the discomfort of proximity? And the answer is, just to give you a real simple thing, if he's got his guard up like this, if I come this way, see what I did? I did this, see? That's all I did. He has his guard up. I'm quite comfortable right now. He's not so comfortable right now because of where I have my hands and where I'm in position. It's very easy for me then to do a technique to him. So this idea of contact, of sticking, is very, very important in the practice of martial arts. What we tend to see people doing, if you watch somebody in a tournament, there's a lot of like trying to reach in and strike and get back and chasing, and there's this like you're trying to touch but stay as far away as possible. So we don't want to do that. So the first thing that I'm going to tell you is that to stick to your opponent means you're probably going to get closer than you really think you want. And it changes how you think about things. If a person grabs onto you, your tendency is to want to get that off. And so the first reaction most people have is to try to knock it away. But if I'm thinking about sticking, I don't think about knocking it away. I think, oh, well, okay, I'll take that. Thank you very much. And so now it's stuck to me. It's glued to my body. And it's very, very easy. By the way, what I did there was first I turned him this way and his hand opened, so I took his finger. Now, this is the next thing about sticking. Sticking is a way for me to move from one thing to another. So let's say he pushes. If I jump back and create space, I can't get his finger. But if as he pushes, I leave my body so that his hand still touches me, now look, I have his fingers. This is super easy to do. I don't have to go looking for them. I don't have to hunt for them. The minute there's physical contact between us, I know where things are. Let's say that it's a cross-hand wrist grab. And I go like this. I'm going to do this technique here, this wrist turn press again. And he starts to fight me. Well, guess what? Because I'm sticking, there's a finger right there I could take instead. Now, here's one of the very best techniques I know for learning the feel of sticking. He grabs me this way. Now, I can pull my hand away here. But if instead of pulling my hand away, I think of almost like two-way action, this is going to be the pivot point, and I push my elbow forward, my elbow stays connected to his hand. Okay? So this is the first piece of the movement. It's like this. And you can already see what's starting to happen to his hand. See, his hand is starting to bend. So now, if I grab this wrist and I do that movement, you see? That's a wrist reversal. So this is a great place to get the feeling. I come this way. I'm sticking. I'm laying the back of I'm not even grabbing. I'm grabbing with one hand, but the other hand, I'm not doing this. I'm just touching. This is one of my favorite ways to learn the concept of sticking in the tuite setting here. It's a very useful technique to get, and you can dance back and forth through it. See? When you do a movement like that, it allows you to get the feeling of contact all the time. Let's take another example of sticking. Let's say he's throwing a punch. Whoa! Now, do you see what I did? I grabbed onto his arm in the middle of his forearm and I went like this. When I do that, my hand stops right there at his wrist. I now have good control at his wrist and I'm positioned for the armbar. I make contact with somebody, whoa, and then I maintain that contact to move into my next technique. So you see, as I came in here, I caught this, I slipped up under to raise his elbow, and then I go up here to take the armbar. So sticking to the opponent is one of the key and critical concepts in doing effective tuite.
A longtime friend and colleague and one of the best martial artists I know is Dustin Seale. And Dustin Seale is incredibly skillful at his tuite technique. And he's in law enforcement, has been for many, many years, and as a result has actually used both tuite skills and kyushujitsu skills for real on the street. One of the best ways when you're learning your tuite to develop the feeling of sticking, continuity of movement, and what we call flow is to do something called I think it's usually called a lock flow drill. And there are a number of these, but this one was developed by Dustin Seale, and it's a really, really good one. I'm going to show that to you now. So let's head into the master class.
But finger lock, and then you need to step and get the palm turned up. That transitions to the forearm turn. Forearm turn, get that to go. This flows right into front shoulder lock. To transition out of front shoulder lock, it's this. So I don't want to just come over to this. I want it still working as if I was doing this. Now it essentially kind of looks like Shudo, but extend that to be able to transition to back shoulder lock. From back shoulder lock, extend this, and you slide down to grab, and then it becomes back to wrist reversal. So from wrist reversal, cut your angle, step back. Now it's forearm turn, or wrist turn and press. Continue this. Now for an arm bar, I don't particularly like having my hand here, but if my hand's already in this position, for the arm bar, it needs to continue, not just step out. Continue cutting back. Now we're into arm bar position. Then this puts you into place while you're still moving for your chicken wings. Do chicken wing, move him right back into wrist reversal. You can throw if you want, or come right back for finger lock. Forearm turn, front shoulder lock, back shoulder lock, wrist reversal, forearm turn and press, slides into arm bar, back to chicken wing, swing them around, right back into wrist reversal. Again, can be your throw, or you maneuver right back into finger locks. Bam.
By the way, there's a lot more content around that because that was captured as he was actually teaching it live. And so each one of those little steps, he goes into the particulars of the technique, of that particular joint manipulation, and shows the nuances that go with it, so that you not only have the flow of the movement, but the way in which you do each of the segments of the flow is correct and accurate and effective. Number 9, the 9th and final principle of tuite. And in some sense, it's not really a principle of tuite as such. It's more like a strategic or tactical principle when doing tuite. And yet it touches in on everything we've already done. It's called redundancy. Let's head into the master class.
We have a ninth principle of tuite, which is called redundancy. The short version of it is do more than one thing at the same time. When I do a wrist turn press, when I do it, I've been doing it like this just for ease of showing you, but what I actually do is I aim for a pressure point right here on the small intestine meridian this way. And as I do that, I wind my hands into my mechanical strength where I'm strong. And I position myself so he's in the weakest place possible. In fact, a lot of times when I'm doing that, I will move in slightly and I'll raise that elbow up just a little bit. Because if I can raise this elbow and create a 45 downward angle and then spiral that in towards my belly, it hurts a whole lot more. Now, the whole time I'm sticking, which allows me to switch to a new technique. So I'm already using mechanical advantage. I'm using complex torque because I'm bending the joints in surprising ways. I'm sticking to the opponent. So in other words, I'm using redundancy all the way through. I'm using redundancy, this idea that you don't just do one thing, but you do 2, 3, 4, 5 things at the same time. For you to practice the concept of redundancy, what I recommend is a very, very simple, super simple practice. Here are fingers. We talk about confusing the joint. Really easy way to confuse the joint is to do this. This is one of the simpler methods. I call it lazy river. And so there's my two-way action, okay? Now, confusing the joint. Now, I just put them together, okay? So all you have to do is take two principles, put them together, and you've got it. And when you do that, you'll suddenly start to see that without even trying, some of the other principles are starting to happen. Like you'll do that and gosh, I'm moving into my strength. Or you'll do that and gosh, I'm getting variable pressure in there, or I'm getting complex torque in there. And you'll start to see these things starting to build on top of each other. Redundancy is actually built into the system. It is almost impossible to do technique properly without layering different concepts on top of each other. But when you can do that consciously, when you think about the fact that redundancy is the goal, then you can start to intentionally combine concepts together. Or anytime you feel resistance, to use one of the principles right away to break that resistance in order to accomplish what you need. Redundancy is so important as one of the principles of tuite, and actually is a tactical principle in the martial arts, that one of my colleagues jokingly says that the 10th principle of tuite is redundancy. I promise you, if you use pressure points, if you utilize two-way action, apply complex torque, generate confusion, create a base, use mechanical advantage, apply variable pressure, stick to the opponent, and utilize redundancy, and you apply those principles to your art, to whatever grappling art or joint manipulation you are doing, your technique will be more effective and it will be easier. Thank you for joining me here on Channel Fight for the Pressure Point Dojo. I look forward to seeing you again on the next episode. Until then, I'm Chris Thomas. Thanks for watching. Now go train.